Welcome to I Support Your Business show with your host and host Mithil, a pod made exclusively to share the journey of our fellow community members of I Support Your Business Indo Canadian community to the world. The main aim of our community is to practice the power of giving, facilitate collaborations and partnerships, and help people connect on a global platform. As your host, being the president of the community currently, as well as the founder and the chief content alchemist of VI Stripe Content Lab, I help solopreneurs, artists, and coaches build their business online organically through content marketing. Today, we have an amazing member from our community. Let's welcome onto the stage none other than Monica. Hello, Monica
Hi,
ji.
hi Mithil. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So, Monica ji, can you share your childhood with us, please?
I definitely had a very absolutely normal childhood, like any other Delhiite or any other Delhi kid brought up in the 80s. I was a part of a family of three kids. We have three sisters. I have one elder sister, one younger one, and then Um, I was probably the most academic one, and hence got through the the army school. I was amongst the 20% civilians that an army school would intake based off an entrance exam. So yes, I think a lot contributed in terms of the discipline that I carry in my life to that army school background. Being a civilian, being exposed to army school background was a huge facilitator in terms of understanding a lot of values that only army people have in India. And From there, I think I would also add that Enid Blyton books played a huge role in my childhood. I was probably the only person. My librarian used to love me because I would just exchange so many books always on a daily basis, reading the entire series available in the library for Enid Blyton, all the Hardy Boys, all the Secret Seven, all the Famous Five. Literally everything that was available, and that probably also led to the fact that in grade 12 when I was studying computer science. And I think we were one of the first few batches in the country who were studying C++. And back in 96, 97, when computers came and internet came, um, we were the first few kids in the country who had access to computer and internet. And I designed a library management system which was used in my school for a couple of years after I passed out. So I still remember Ishtiaq sir, my librarian. Whenever I would visit school later, because the school was so close by, he would still tell me, "We are still using your system, by the way." And so that was quite a good sense of achievement back then. Yeah, so all in all, lovely, amazing childhood. My father is very fond of traveling, and I think that kind of inculcated um, the the joy of traveling and the nomad in me. That's what sort of encourages me even till date. And I think I hope I've passed that on to my kids. Like we all love to travel, and I've got that from my dad.
That's really lovely, Monica ji. So, Monica ji, when and how did your professional journey started?
So I started my career in 2003 after finishing. So I did my bachelor's in applied mathematics, and then I did an MBA, master's in business administration, while also pursuing distance learning, master's in computer science. And when I passed out in 2003 from my MBA, that's when dot-com bust happened. I don't know if you know about that, but Yahoo lost almost all of its equity and shareholding value in 2003. And that was the beginning and the first time ever that the world saw how economy can crash uh, because of a certain few companies. The world was not so open up until then. We were quite dependent in terms of our news sources on a couple of websites like Yahoo, MSN, etc. So, of course, everybody didn't know everything. While from a class of 27, I think I was amongst the only few people who decided to stick to the online industry. And my first job was in in the online newsletter space, because back then, when .com bust happened, the only thing that was selling still online was content newsletters. So I stuck to that. I still remember my first salary used to be 8,400 rupees in cash. So that was obviously not a happy situation for my parents. Like, after doing MBA, is this what you're getting? So while rest of my friends decided to join banks as tellers, compromising their studies and career, which is obviously everybody's independent decisions. And then moving from there, lots of ups and downs later. I think about 16 years later, in the hindsight, I think the biggest achievement, I would say, in my career was using my understanding of creating content for several platforms, being able to customize content for several different target audiences, being able to speak to whoever wants to be heard in whatever way, and using the right channel for it, and you being able to use all of that for governance purposes. So I worked a lot with a lot of governance, quasi public organizations, like Foreign Office in the UK, and then Ministry of Commerce and Industries in India, and then different state governments in India. And all of these things really sparked that interest in me, where I think one of the things that I became very much interested in was understanding public opinion, and then sort of creating and crafting narratives that match that opinion, and passing on feedback from that opinion back to sort of the people sitting in the government for them to take action. So that sort of gave a huge sense of achievement to me, that I was able to close the loop.
This
Um,
is so wonderful.
yeah, I mean, in the hindsight, I really feel I miss those days, because now, and then, like, almost at the peak of the career, like every other sort of person who has this typical corporate burnout, especially with women who are balancing families and then careers and everything else. I took a career break, and maybe that was its destiny. I really very strongly believe in destiny. And then I moved into agriculture side. I started growing mushrooms. I started basically a mushroom based business, where we would not just grow mushrooms like a typical farmer, but also use the understanding and knowledge of marketing and consumer behavior, and create like a niche product that sort of added value to a certain segment and demographic of people. So in the next 4 years after leaving my corporate job, I created two brands, the Mushrooms Hub and Prakatech. And then these two brands sort of became a big part of my entrepreneurial journey before I moved here to Canada.
Awesome, awesome. So, Monica ji, I know you touch point on this particular question, but I want to go deeper into it.
Mm.
When did you actually turn into an entrepreneur?
So back in 2016, when I was working with one of the big fours, that is when, while I was hugely satisfied in terms of the quality of work that I was doing, the work life balance was definitely not the best, especially when one of my child was at the peak of her teenage, and the other one was just about, like, started going to play school. And as a typical mother's guilt, I would see that I'm not able to spend enough time with them. I'm not able to spend and sort of just enjoy their childhood. And each day that guilt would sort of, not let me enjoy the work that I was actually intellectually, yes, I did enjoy that. And so around then, I kind of, and then all of this sort of started giving me health issues, and of course, like a typical corporate burnout that happens. And then I left that, and I think at that point in time, the key driving decision for me was, I want to do something that does not need me to sit in front of a computer for 20 hours. Um, if you ask me, even 2 months before making that decision, I may not have even thought about farming. farming was like, we are a public servant family. Both my parents, both my husband's parents, everybody has been either a central government or a state government public servant, and so like none of us would have dreamt even that one of us would enter farming per se. Not even our grandparents were farmers. Like I cannot even say that our grandparents were farmers. So when I took that decision, obviously I took it like a professional. I decided to get myself trained, uh, went to Solon to acquire proper mushroom training and everything. The first reaction, obviously, from the family was, she'll get over it. She's in a shock. She'll get over it. And 6 months went by when I started getting real mushrooms and I started getting real clients, and acknowledgement started to come. And I think that acknowledgement was, I would also say, and for that, I have to mention here that people who know me they tell me that I have a tendency to undermine my efforts. This is probably me doing that. That it probably became an easier story to pick up because this was a white skinned, very modern looking women mushroom farmer living in a city speaking English in north of India. Very odd story. And so, yeah, of course, it did pick up very easily. But going break even in 6 months with no farming background, um, setting up a farm in under 500,000, reaching uh, up to 8 varieties of mushrooms in first year. Um, Nobody has done that. I have not heard of anybody doing that in the mushroom industry. Um, After 6 months of the business, I have not infused money from my savings. It's run itself, and it's still running itself despite me being not there. So the sustainability that I inculcated in the business is something that, yes, I am proud of. And that's how I think I just got into the business because I was destined to be in that business, because there was absolutely no rhyme or reason for me to be farming if I look back.
Wow, this journey is so beautiful, so beautiful. So, Monica ji, I'm excited to know about the story behind your brand, like, the story behind naming your brand, if you can
Mhm.
share about that.
Oh, that's another interesting one. In fact, I was sharing exact same story with my daughter, who is now also planning to join an institute of entrepreneurs here for one semester, and they sort of incubate and help entrepreneurs grow. So I was telling her about this story, and um, so long before I even ever thought of becoming an entrepreneur, back in 2009 or 2010, there was a friend, I don't know, there was an acquaintance, there was somebody I knew in the industry who reached out, and he was like, I have a friend who wants to start a dairy business um, somewhere near Delhi, in the outskirts of Delhi, and they're using very modern technology, and they wanna there's so many dairy businesses out there in that area especially. So he wants to set up sort of his business on the USP that he using very modern technologies. So I thought and thought and thought, and then he's like, can you help me sort of brand that business? And I thought about it, and then I very clearly remember, like, we had this old Wagoner, and I and my husband, we were driving somewhere, where I don't know, but we were driving somewhere, and I suddenly thought of this name because I'd been thinking about it like constantly for a week. And then suddenly this name came, and I was scrambling in the glove box to see if there was a paper in there, because I always carry a pen in my bag. So I had a pen, but I didn't have a paper, and I looked for, and there was this old insurance paper, and I took it out, and I I wrote pra in Hindi, and then I wrote tech in English. And back in 2010-11, we used to have those phones with little screens with QWERTY keyboards, with no WhatsApp. Uh, I used to carry a BlackBerry, and so I clicked a picture of that little handwritten thing and I sent to that person, like, how does this sound? And it's like, yeah, yeah, this sounds amazing. Thank you so much. I'll pass it on. End of story. Finish. That's what happened. 10 years later, when I'm thinking about my own brand around about environment sustainability and zero waste, I Google and I'm like, did that person use this? Like, no, nothing, because I'm no more in touch with the person who I gave the name to. And so I Google and I find different variations. I'm not able to find anything. So I was like, oh, probably, thankfully, they didn't use it. So I used it myself for myself, and that's how Prakriti came. So it was Prakriti and technology, Prakriti being a Hindi word for nature, and tech being a short word for technology. And when nature meets technology is when Prakriti happens.
Lovely, lovely. This is a beautiful story. So, if I have to take you back to the memory lane, Monica ji, can you share the initial days of handling your business?
The initial days of handling business for me probably would sound similar to any entrepreneur's first time entrepreneur's journey with no mentor. And that sort of brings me to the importance of mentorship in entrepreneurial space, which is highly underrated in our country, in India at least. I see here in Canada that mentorship is something which is taught to students right from the school. They are taught to ask for help because you don't know everything. In India, that level of teaching is not there. So when I became an entrepreneur, I didn't know that it would make sense for me to seek a mentor, somebody who's been in the business space, who knows it all, and they may not know about my business, but they know the basic rules of the business, and they will give me the steps to not go wrong. And so, probably, I think my journey would be very similar to somebody who was a first time entrepreneur balancing a family and a business and not having a mentor, and which is, of course, reinventing the wheel every day. Inventing that you have, oh, there is one more hurdle to be crossed. You finish every day assuming, oh, now this is taken care of, and then something else comes next morning. So that's like a constant struggle of of sort of meeting deadlines and solving problems, and of course giving OTPs for 24 by 7, 31 days a week, 12 months a year, non-stop. Like, you don't get holidays, you don't get breaks, you try and sneak breaks in between. Like, I remember I have this post on my social media where all you can see is my legs and the dog sitting between my legs and a banana in my hand, which used to be my typical 10 minutes of me time during my farming days, where I would just sit silently, eat a banana, while my dog would just sit in between my legs and sort of, I think he's trying to comfort himself, but probably it's me who's trying to drive comfort out of it. And just those 10 minutes of, I need a break. Nobody called me, nobody asked me a question. दीदी ये कैसे करें, दीदी ये कैसे करें, don't just leave me alone for 10 minutes. And that used to be, I mean, that's the typical life of an entrepreneur. And I don't think anybody talks about it. Everybody talks about the good side, nobody talks about the hustle. People glorify hustle. In the hindsight, I will tell you, hustle does a lot of bad things to you. Hustle makes you anxious. Hustle makes your body um, deplete in magnesium, in B12, in so many other essential vitamins that your body needs. Hustle is not a great thing. It gives you that kick, but it takes a lot out of you. So, yes, I mean, that's the journey. But then I think I would say, yes, the journey was very interesting, but I would also say that if you take it as a learning experience, you learn and you become wiser. and you learn how to do it better than next time if life gives you a chance to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, coming to that now, Monica ji, if you can share with us what were the hiccups as well as the learnings that you found in this still journey of entrepreneurship.
um Hiccups, of course, I would say one of the bigger hiccups was despite being an MBA student, I just took one subject of accounting. I was not a finance or accounting major. So that was one area of work I had no clues about. In fact, up until I became an entrepreneur, my dad has been an auditor throughout his life. He used to file our taxes. I never even filed my own taxes. So basically, which that what that meant was when I became an entrepreneur, I had to learn to read numbers. I had to learn what's the best way to even record numbers and then understand those numbers in a way that helps my business. One of the things that from this hiccup sort of taught me and that I share with anybody who is entering an entrepreneurial journey is that if you are planning to enter a business in partnership with a few people, make sure you bring somebody with accounting knowledge. Make sure you bring somebody who understands the finances from a very overarching perspective. It really helps a business a lot. I would say the dream combination would be somebody from a marketing background, somebody from a finance background, and then somebody who is the subject matter expert of the business itself. That's the dream combination. So the second hiccup, of course, I would say was the gender bias of being a woman in the farming space. Um, I would attend, annual events at Pusa Institute in Delhi. I would attend annual events in Solan, Himachal Pradesh, and of course, I could feel those cold stares from all the old sort of men in the farming space, while people in the government, the head of the horticulture department and all of those people, they love me because, of course, because of me, media gave some attention to mushroom space, and media was interested to talk to us, and so they could get some media footage and then take it to their bosses and ask for more funding. And so um, that sort of was another hiccup where I had to literally balance out. And and again, I would say every hiccup I see it as a learning, what it gave me as a learning. And I think one of the big things that it gave me as a learning was I learned good Hindi. I brushed up my Hindi. The last I studied Hindi was grade 8. My elder sister is a Sanskrit graduate, so I, of course, took Sanskrit in grade 9, because being a sister who can teach you Sanskrit gives you the promise of full marks. And so that was the last I studied Hindi. I love Hindi. I love speaking in Hindi. And here in Canada also, I ensure that my children know Hindi. They speak in Hindi. We don't speak in English at home. And so this opportunity kind of helped me brush up my Hindi, because all the Doordarshan Kisan interviews, DD Kisan interviews, and all the radio interviews, everything would happen in Hindi. Nobody. The only interview I think I gave in English was the Indian Express interview, and other than that, everything else happened in Hindi. And so uh, that was a hiccup, but again, a learning came out of it, and I think that's my perspective of looking at every problem. That it gives you learnings. There's something that it leaves you with the learning. I love that Murakami quotes that what storms do to you. You come out of the storm a different person, and that's what they do to you. And so when a storm comes, become a bull and run towards the storm. Don't run away from it, because if you run away from it, you will spend a longer time into it. If you run towards it, you may get bruised and marred and everything, but you are in the arena and you come out of it faster.
Absolutely, that's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
Lovely. So, Monica ji, you being an entrepreneur, can you share 5 things that you feel every entrepreneur must have?
And I may have written a different set of 5 things back then when I shared my document with Swarna. And I think I may have written a lot of different things. It's like probably my content brain, which thinks about something and then Today I may be thinking about something else. So you may get different perspectives when you compare this with that. But the five things that I think an entrepreneur essentially must sort of be good at or remember, or sort of, the checklist would be, of course, like I mentioned before, find a mentor. Mentorship is very underrated. um, I still remember something close to a mentor that I had was a friend, and now I can call them a friend, but there was this person I used to do freelance consulting for. While I was an entrepreneur, I did a lot of consulting gigs while I was an entrepreneur just to pay the bills, and which was uh, Saloni Malhotra. She is one of the um, youngest CEOs in the country. Also runs a beautiful space called Reboot Wellness in Gurgaon. And she sort of unofficially was the only mentor that I had. And one of the things, one of the very beautiful things she taught me at, two things actually that she taught me was, never have a plan B, because if you have a plan B, you will not give your 100% to plan A. And the second was that, you hire monkey, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. And which is the reality. Like if you try and undermine and hire cheap people, you don't get good talent. uh, Pay fair value to your to the people who are working for you. They will, in most cases, they will perform. And it also, I mean, a lot of caveats to this. It also depends on uh, what's your knack for finding talent. Like, can you be easily fooled by people? Because that's a big problem with recruitment these days as well. So like chat gpt is helping making people write like cover letters and resumes that they could not potentially even fathom to think about. So all of those things are happening these days, but then back then, and since I was majorly dealing with blue collar staff for the first time in my life, um, for blue collar people, money is a very important factor. Money, and the addition that I understood was respect. I think my staff worked for me, one, because yes, I paid them slightly better than market rates, and two, because I would always treat them with a lot of respect. I will never talk foul with them. I will always, talk to them. Aap ye kar denge. Never rudely speaking with any of them, and that sort of, I think, worked in a way that my talent did their best uh, towards the business. They felt it was their business. Um, so those are, I think, having a mentor is, of course, one very important thing. Some of the other things that an entrepreneur should remember is, create your plan in a way that you pay yourself. If you don't pay yourself, you don't have scalability in your business. Like, we have this tendency, and I think it's probably the brown tendency of brown people, which is, we keep ourselves at the end. We don't like to sort of give ourselves the importance, the the value that we deserve. So pay yourself, make the plan, make the operating budget in a way that you're paying yourself. Third important thing is, take breaks. Don't burn yourself out. Work will happen. It will not happen today. It will happen tomorrow. It will happen day after tomorrow. Sometimes you have to define your boundaries and take breaks, and just take a break from work. So build resiliency in your system in a way that you're able to take breaks. That's a very important thing for an entrepreneur. Um, while you are caught up in everyday rigmarole of work, everyday problem solving, also think 2 years, 3 years in the future. Think, where do you want to see your business 3 years into the future? So have a vision in mind. It may seem like, very big word for a small business that is struggling for every day, bills and everyday, orders, but then have a vision in mind. Those breaks will lead you to those visions. And the last thing, of course, is you know understand the larger ecosystem. Understand, you know what industry you are in, and then read news about that industry to make sure that you have and you understand the ecosystem of that industry from a larger perspective. Know about government policies, know about what's government doing, in like what's the government's plan in the next 5 years for the industry that you are in. What are the policies that they have? And then train your brain to think in a way that how can I align with these policies and make the best use for my business. So um, a lot of things are like, these are very top level things. It's not like, you know have a better accountant, have a good social media designer. Yes, of course you will do all of that, but a lot of these check boxes are like somebody who's been an entrepreneur, continues to be, of course, while also being full-time employed now, but now is has the ability to sit outside the system and look at it from a very overarching angle and decipher learnings out of that experience.
Got it. Got it. So, Monica ji, in this many years of being as an entrepreneur, how has being an entrepreneur changed you as a human being?
Patience. And everybody agrees on that. My parents tell me, uh, my husband knows this, my daughter knows this. I used to be a highly impatient person. I used to be a control freak. Like, this has to be done, this has to be done this way, and by this time. And if that doesn't happen, oh my goodness, I would lose it. And business taught me things can go wrong, and it is okay. It is okay that we get delayed, and it is okay. Things will happen. Sometimes, if it is getting delayed or things are not happening, it's for your own good. So learn to accept change, go with the flow, and have patience. So I think that's what I've learned. It may also be my age, but I do not believe that suddenly between the age of 30s, 38 and 42, I aged like, oh my God, I became a wiser person. Probably it was the entrepreneurship journey that gave me this so-called, the wise streak, and like literally the wise streak in my brain, the silver colored wise streak. But yeah, I got that.
Got it. So, Monica ji, do you really think there is a success formula to establish a business?
Yeah, it seems so. you know, in the venture capital space, uh, it seems there is definitely a formula, but is that sustainable success? That's my big question. Is that a success that continues? Is that a success that stays? And is that a success of the founder? Or is that the success of the investors? There are so many questions in my brain. um, Back in my entrepreneurship journey, initial 2 years, I got so many offers from investors who were ready to put in money for, like just the investor money. Like, I don't want to have anything to do operationally with the business. Of course, who would want to get into farming operationally? But I want to put in money because they probably saw, or they felt, or it sort of the bubble made them feel that, oh, this is going big. So everybody wanted to put in their money. But is that a good thing for the founder? And I think that was one of the good decisions I took back then, that I chose to remain bootstrapped. I chose to remain independent and not fall for investor money, because yes, I could have grown multifold on riding on somebody else's money, but I would then be answerable. I would then have to bend my ways backwards and bend my values to be able to give them value for their money. So, yes, I think in today's world, practically, there is an established formula to be successful. Like, there are absolute numbers. Like, you have those level of conversion rates, and then there are these fancy acronyms that are used in the venture capital space to be able to become successful. I am sitting, like, now I am a part of a startup group, where startup group of, group of investors for startups. Like, I'm an investor now, and I listen through pitches probably once every month of people who are pitching to us, like, as a group, for money. And I listen to those pitches and I hear a lot of jargon. I just hear a lot of jargon, but what I'm looking for is the longevity of the business, the future potential of the business to succeed. Um, I'm also looking for the passion of the founder. And when I don't see these things, I don't see value in that business. So, it's the answer is yes and no. Yes, there is a formula for success, but then it also depends what is your definition of success. My definition of success is a business that has the sustainability built into it, which is not a, a sort of a hockey stick growth and then a downfall in a similar pattern. And that's what I look at as for success. But for some people, that hockey stick growth is success. So, like, yes and no. Sorry, don't have a correct answer.
Absolutely fine, no problem about it. In fact, I think you give a very honest answer. There is a yes also, and there is a no also. It all depends upon the perspective uh, of the
Yeah,
industry, of the niche, of the founder, and there are many other aspects and
yeah,
parameters for it. So,
yeah,
absolutely, I totally agree with you. Thank you
yeah.
so much, Monika ji. So, Monika ji, before we end this particular episode, what is a message you would like to give to our community members as well as to the people who are listening to this particular podcast?
One of the things I've noticed, and I think since I've finally got an opportunity to speak about it with somebody other than my daughter, who often listens to me, is um, entrepreneurship has been sort of overvalued and too drummed up in the last 4 to 5 years, especially post COVID. It has suddenly been the narrative that people who do regular 9 to 5s or who do jobs are the boring ones, and entrepreneurs are the interesting ones. Um, and I want to sort of say that it's never a black or a white. There is always a shade of gray in between. Uh, you have to you have to think if entrepreneurship is for you before you take the plunge, because when you become an entrepreneur, it is not just your life getting impacted, it is the life of so many others around you getting impacted, your family, your friends. Yes, you yourself are the most getting impacted. While on one end of the spectrum you will learn a lot, but on the other end of the spectrum there will be a lot that entrepreneurship will take out of you. Are you ready for that? Ask yourself these honest questions. Are you ready for 24-hour days? Are you ready to work 7 days a week? Are you ready to work 365 days a year? Are you ready for that compromise? Can you do this to your family? Like, I see these women with little kids wanting to be entrepreneurs. There is absolutely no shade on any of that. And, like, I'm hesitant to speak it out, but it's like, you will not get to experience this beautiful childhood of your child again. And for whatever money, I would miss it. That's my perspective. And I'm nobody, absolutely nobody to preach anyone anything. So I would say, um, my message is, find your space and find what you're good at. Entrepreneurship is very glorious. It's sort of, it's got that, suddenly there is this crown on your head of being a hustler, being a successful person, being somebody who thinks out of the box, an innovator, etc., etc. Because you're an entrepreneur, and being an extremely boring person if you work full time. in a job. Not true. My only sort of ending statement would be not true. There is so much I did in my corporate career days. There's so much I'm doing now, and there is so much I did in between. So everything is a journey, and everything is a learning, and you just have to ask yourself if that's the right thing for you at that point in time in your life. That's it.
Lovely. It was a really nice conversation with you. And thank you so much, Monica ji, for going deeper into, I would say, the entrepreneurship, where I can totally agree that you have actually seen the ground level, you have worked at the ground level of entrepreneurship and have grown much higher. So, thank you so much for coming here and sharing with us your golden nuggets, I would say.
Thanks, Mithil. Thanks for the time and all the opportunity. And I really appreciate all that you're doing for ISYB. I think what you're doing is true community spirit, going above and beyond, taking our time. Time is the biggest currency these days. And what you're giving to the community is what you and so many others are giving to the community. It is unmatched. I really appreciate all of that. Gratitude to everybody.
Thank you so much, Monica ji. I'm honored. Means a lot. So you have just listened to I Support Your Business show with your host Mithil. Thank you so much for listening to our show and giving so much love. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on the podcast platform that you are listening. This is Mithil signing off at the moment. Until next time, meet you soon with another community member and their exciting story. But until then, keep rocking, stay safe, and don't forget to keep creating content. Ciao.